Hello, I'm Leah Wilson, Executive Director and co founder of Stand for Health Freedom. And friends, before we jump in today, I want to say something important that Stand for Health Freedom is nonpartisan. We are an issue based voting bloc. We work with candidates who are willing to stand for our values of informed consent, parental rights, individual liberty, regardless of party. And that's one of the reasons I'm particularly excited about today's conversation. David Pascoe is Stand for Health Freedom's endorsed candidate running for Attorney General in the state of South Carolina. And he's a prosecutor who chose values over party and is ready to take on corruption and defend your rights as South Carolina people as the Attorney General. So having the courage to follow your convictions is something that we watch very closely for in a candidate endorsed by Stand for Health Freedom. So, David, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Good morning, Lee, and thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. I mean, you've certainly had a unique political journey, and I'd love just to cut straight to the chase and hear what led you to make the decision to change parties before an election like this, and when did that happen?
Yeah, well, interestingly, and very importantly, my values haven't changed at all. I've always been pro medical freedom. I've always been a tough on crime prosecutor. I'm the only candidate who's put evil men on death row. I'm the only candidate that has prosecuted public corruption from the municipal level all the way up to the state level. And like you said, it's about values, not political party when it comes to that. I've gone after Democrats and Republicans. And as the Attorney General for South Carolina, I'm going to go after corruption, whether the Republicans, Democrats, whites, blacks, no matter who they are. But the reason for the party switch is a culmination of things. Number one, the Democratic Party obviously didn't want me anymore because of my stance on medical freedom, because I was the only district attorney, or we call them solicitors in the state of South Carolina, that was literally criticized nationally and locally by the press for trying cases during COVID because of my stance on medical freedom. You can Google it, David Pascoe COVID trial. We got a conviction on that murder trial, by the way. And because of my positions on capital punishment and other conservative issues, I left the Democratic Party. I was actually, even 4 years before leaving the Democratic Party, I had already, as a Democrat, gone across this state and spoken to over 24 Republican groups, the Greenville Republican Party, the Horry County Conservatives, Newberry Republican Party. I'd already started speaking to them 4 years before switching parties about the need to fight public corruption in South Carolina and change the way we pick our judges. So I've had a history with the Republican Party. They recruited me for 20 years to make the switch, and I finally decided to make the switch out of conscience.
So this didn't happen overnight. This was a
No.
long time coming recruitment game, it sounds like, from one party to another.
10 years ago, the Democratic Party made it perfectly clear that they really didn't want me anymore. And they really, really made it clear in 2022 because none of my values fit with the Democratic Party.
So, in a Republican dominant state like South Carolina, you were in the prosecutor's office as a Democrat. And so, is the prosecutor's office left leaning?
No, I've never had a defendant or a criminal ask me whether, or a victim for that matter, ask me whether I was a Republican or a Democrat. Never. When I put those men on death row, I didn't ask them whether they were Republicans or Democrats. And that's the way a prosecutor's office should be. It should be 100% about just doing the right thing. And that's what I'm going to do as Attorney General.
And I have to ask, you mentioned a conviction. So, that means a criminal conviction on a COVID case. Will you just give us a brief synopsis of what that means? What is this conviction that you secured?
Well, that was a murder case. And my point being that during COVID, there were lockdowns, obviously, all across the country and in South Carolina. But as soon as we had the opportunity to try cases, I jumped on it in the first week so we could try a murder case in Orangeburg County. And because a couple of people caught COVID during the trial, it made local news, state news, and the national news that quote unquote Democrat at the time, David Pascoe, going against the wishes of the Biden administration, is trying cases during COVID. And I didn't care. We tried it. A couple people got COVID or caught a cold, and we got a conviction. Nobody died. Nobody got seriously ill. And we got a conviction for that murder case. The lockdown, as you know, the lockdowns were insane. And I don't understand how more people in real time didn't understand that, especially keeping our children out of schools and keeping them away from the ball fields and the athletic events is really set us back several years across the nation, but even in red Republican South Carolina.
I think it's because people are constitutionally illiterate and they just allow the government to run roughshod and they said, well, we just don't know. This is novel. We just don't know. And it's like, wait, when you're referring to a principle of what the government's role is, you don't have to know everything to have sound mind. But why is freedom, especially in health and personal decisions, such a defining issue for you?
It goes to the foundation of our country and the founding fathers. It goes long before that. That's why people left England and Denmark and other areas of Europe to come to America, was to get away from tyranny and to have freedom. I mean, that's the entire reason our country was founded. So it should be the top priority in everything we do in the United States of America and in South Carolina.
It's always fascinating to me that it feels like these principles are almost too far gone in some respects. I mean, look at privacy. You mentioned the inception of our country was built on notions of things like privacy, of saying, you can't enter my home and search for British soldiers without a warrant, without a reason to do so. And do you think these principles are too far gone for us, or you still going to fight for them?
We're going to fight for them. They're not too far gone. I'm always optimistic. We're still the greatest country in the world, and we still have a Fourth Amendment on searches and seizures and other amendments. And those are the things that I'm going to fight for, like I have for the 33 years I've been a prosecutor.
And
Just
for people
abide by the rules. Just abide by the rules. Both civilians, defendants, and prosecutors and law enforcement. Just abide by the Constitution.
And for people who may not fully understand the role that you're running for as Attorney General, what power does the Attorney General actually have to protect citizens' rights in South Carolina?
I say this everywhere I go, Leah. The race for Attorney General is the most important race on the ballot because it is the one position in the executive branch that has the power to get involved in everything. There's a quote by a famous Sicilian prosecutor, and I'm Sicilian, so go figure that I would bring this up. Giovanni Falcone, he once said, there's always something we can do. There's always something we can do. That applies to the Attorney General of South Carolina. There is almost nothing that the Attorney General can't get involved in. We are the first line of defense in protecting the liberties and freedoms of citizens in our states, and especially the way our powers are designed in South Carolina, the constitutional powers of the Attorney General. So if there was ever another attempt to do lockdowns, it's the Attorney General's job to fight that in court. If another state tries to, or the federal government tries to overreach on the sovereignty of South Carolina, it's not the governor's job to stop that. It's the Attorney General's job to stop that.
In your response to our candidate survey, I noticed that you were very clear that you oppose the pesticide liability shields. And even you went as far to compare these liability shields to what we saw with the pharmaceutical companies. So, why is this such a serious issue when it comes to our liberties?
Money. That's the reason why it's become such a serious issue. I don't need to explain to your viewers how big pharma has actually destroyed or made it impossible to get drugs and prescriptions, and the same with these chemical companies. The reason um, attorneys general, in my opinion, across the country haven't been more proactive is because of money. It's because most attorneys generals are going to run for other offices one day. AG around the country has stood for aspiring governor. So attorney generals have to make friends. I have made this pledge. I will never run for any other office but attorney general in South Carolina. And when I am done being attorney general of South Carolina, I am not going into private practice. Therefore, I don't have to make any friends. So David Pascoe is not going to be in there defending big pharma or these chemical companies. I'm going to be fighting for the citizens of South Carolina who fall prey and victim of these companies.
Speaking of money, you did say that you were determined to deter illegal lobbying and fight against harmful federal policies in court. So can you give us an example of what that would look like for the people?
Well, like when you talk about illegal lobbying, in South Carolina, and I posted this video and it actually went viral both on Facebook and social and on X. We had a state senator stand up and expose the truth. Pretty good senator, one who stands for medical freedom himself. He stood up and said, "Mr. President, are you aware that I have been offered between 50 and $100,000 in campaign money from the trial lawyers of South Carolina if I vote against tort reform?" Now, I don't care where you stand on the issue of tort reform as Attorney General. What I care about is that you do it the right way. No one thinks that that is not a potential crime, what he alleged. The Senate president got apoplectic. He couldn't get a sentence out. He finally said, "We'll be adjourned." They left for 2 hours, Leah, came back and acted as if nothing happened. What I've said is that, again, as Attorney General, I don't care about making friends up at the Senate or the State House. On my first day, I'm going to be sending agents there to find out what he meant. We are going to have a level playing field in South Carolina when it comes to lobbying, whether it's the trial lawyers, whether it's big pharma, or whether it's the other side, the trucker association. I'm going to make sure that they do it the right way. In South Carolina, I think I'm right about this. If I'm not, I apologize, but I think I'm right. 35 years almost of having the Ethics Act, and we've only secured one conviction for illegal lobbying, and that was by me when I was a special prosecutor during the State House corruption probe back around 2017. Are you telling me that we've only had illegal lobbying one time in 30 plus years in South Carolina?
What we allow to happen becomes the norm, right? And I mean, you talk about defending against the illegal corruption within the state. Is it possible in your position as Attorney General that you can defend South Carolina against federal overreach? And what could that look like for the people?
The Attorney General is, again, the first line of defense against federal overreach. And when that happens, South Carolina, I will file a lawsuit on behalf of our state faster than you can type it. That is, again, that's another job. That's why I say the AG is the most important position on the ballot. It's not the governor or the comptroller that can stop the federal government from encroaching on our sovereignty. It's the attorney general and only the attorney general that can do that.
Voting for someone like the Attorney General influences what can happen across the nation, too. We often see that 10, 11, 15, 27 AGs will get together from the states and go to the federal government and say, look, here's what we're demanding as the several states. Is that something that you're interested in doing? Is working with other states to challenge federal overreach?
Very interested. But what I'd say as I go across the state of South Carolina and talk to the voters is I want South Carolina to start becoming, when I'm attorney general, the first state to file those lawsuits, not the 17th or the third state to file those lawsuits. I want to be a leader on many of those issues, particularly when it comes to medical freedom.
With medical freedom, we often hear in the state assembly that, well, we don't want to do anything that already has federal preemption. Well, to me, it's clear that there might be some things that exist at the federal level where they're claiming authority that is unconstitutional, and we need to be bold enough to take it back. If you look at what is being demanded of hospital administrations to require of their own employees, we have some health freedom encroachments going on.
Absolutely. Too many times you hear people say, "Oh, there's nothing I can do about it because a judge ruled a certain way in another case." Well, there are always differences in every case. Let a judge decide. If it's something that common sense says, no, they're encroaching too much here, take it to court and let a judge decide that issue. Fight for what's right. I'm tired of people not willing to fight for what's right. They just give up because, oh, there was a Ninth Circuit opinion that came out 2 years ago that kind of addressed this issue. Well, kind of is not addressing the exact issue, and that's the Ninth Circuit. Take it to court in South Carolina and have a South Carolina judge rule on it.
There any other health freedom issues that you would wanna tackle and prioritize as the AG in South Carolina or that we haven't covered yet?
I think the one that comes to mind is protecting parents' rights to do what they need. They know what's best for their children, and that's one of the things that I'm going to make sure of protecting is parental rights and looking out for the best interest of their children. That's always going to be top priority for me. Anything to do with children, I say this across the state. I have an agenda of 5 things, but number one is children, 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 children. So parental rights will be a top priority.
We have a strong track record of stopping bad bills that are seeking to put in place the mental health screenings for all students. And what we see is they take these mental health screenings that have quote unquote good intentions. We can give them that. We can be compassionate about the rise in mental health issues in our children, of course. But is the school the solution? Is excluding parents the solution? Are we protecting kids from their own parents? And there's a big problem when we leap over the notion that the parent is best suited to guide their child long term. And is that something that you think that we can defend against, is getting healthcare out of the schools when it threatens the parent child relationship?
Yes, in two ways. First of all, the attorney general can use his or her position as the bully pulpit with the legislature to make sure that their rights are protected and that schools aren't encroaching on parental rights and what's best for children. And secondly, if any such laws or school boards are enacting certain rules that may be unconstitutional or violate other statutes in South Carolina, again, it's the attorney general who can and should and will, when I'm attorney general, bring that lawsuit to stop that.
I have to bring this up. What we're seeing with more transparency in healthcare is that there are an increasing number, a rapidly increasing number of parents who want to make different decisions for their children's health than might be recommended by their doctor. But what comes with that is the doctor making a report that now the parent is medically negligent for not following standard of care. So we're getting more and more calls for medical kidnapping to say, look, my child has been removed because I did not follow the doctor's recommendations. What can we do about that? Because you know as well as I do that these judges hear from the medical expert and believe that they are acting on behalf of the child, even though there's more than one way to care for our children. And the parent should be the one that gets to decide how to nurture that child.
The parent should be the one who decides how to nurture that child, and someone needs to intervene to be a neutral person to look into that and maybe come to the defense of those parents. And that can be the Office of the Attorney General throughout the state of South Carolina. I'm unaware of any such cases like that in South Carolina, but please, for your viewers out there, if you know of any, get it to me, whether it's from a circuit court judge or a family court judge. Provide me with that information so I can study on this issue even more. There's no question in the South Carolina we need to have family court reform. And if that is going on in our courts in South Carolina, I need to know about it. Because again, there's always something I can do as Attorney General.
Absolutely. Well, David Pascoe is endorsed by Stand for Health Freedom for Attorney General in South Carolina. So if you care about protecting individual rights, holding powerful interests accountable, and having leaders who are willing to stand by their convictions, then this is a race to get engaged with. So, David, please tell our listeners who are just now hearing from you what is the best way to follow your race, to get engaged, to reach out to your team.
You can just go to Pascoe for SCAG.com. That's PASCOE FORSCAG.com. Make a contribution if you can. Follow us on social media. Spread our message across social media. You live in South Carolina, order yard signs. We've been giving those out by the hundreds in the last few days because of all the support we've gotten. So yeah, and just please reach out to us. And again, and very importantly, and I mean this, yeah, I'm doing my day job and running a campaign. So I don't have many minutes in the day where I have private time. But I ask people, when you're aware of corruption going on in South Carolina or people that are victimized because of what you just said, Leah, if there are cases out there where family court judges are taking children from parents on the medical freedom issue, y'all get that to me. I have a team that I have go through those cases with me so I can learn more about those issues and I can outline a plan of attack to stop it as Attorney General. And in some cases, stop it now, even though I'm not Attorney General. I'm a very proactive person. I don't like to sit back and just let things happen. If there is something that is wrong, I want to stop it, whether it's now as a solicitor or as Attorney General. So please reach out to me if you have any information about crimes, corruption, or just bullying. Let me know about it because I'm not running for Attorney General to work for Big Pharma, for chemical companies, or any group for that matter. I'm running for the citizens of South Carolina. You're the only people I'm going to work.
Yeah, and friends, you don't understand how critical it is to do things like share this interview and to have a yard sign. Those things are what make a race, are what allow the names on the ballots to make sense to the people who cast their ballot. So we are proud to endorse David Pascoe for Attorney General in South Carolina. Thank you so much, David, for joining us today.
I had a great time. Anything I can ever do for y'all, please let me know. Thank you so much for your endorsement. It means a whole lot here in South Carolina. Thank you.